The rain pounded against the windows of John Miller's cabin. Lightning flashed across the dark sky, briefly lighting up the forest outside. John sat by the fireplace, a worn medical textbook in his lap. 5 years had passed since he left his job as a combat medic. Now he lived alone in the Appalachian Mountains, away from people and their problems. A loud crash echoed through the trees, louder than the thunder. John jumped to his feet. That wasn't thunder. That sounded like metal, hitting the ground. He grabbed his flashlight and raincoat. Probably a fallen tree hitting someone's car, he muttered to himself. John stepped outside into the pouring rain. The beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness as he walked toward the sound. The rain soaked through his boots and the cold. Wind bit at his face. After walking for 10 minutes, John saw broken trees and disturbed earth. Something big had crashed here. Then he saw it. A strange metal object, unlike any aircraft he had ever seen. It was small, maybe the size of a car, with a sleek design that seemed to absorb the light from his flashlight. Smoke rose from one side where damage was visible. "Hello?" John called out. "Is anyone hurt?" No answer came. John moved closer, his heart pounding in his chest. This was not a human aircraft. The material looked like metal, but shimmered with colors that shifted as he moved his light across it. A section of the craft had split open. John peered inside and gasped. Lying in what seemed to be a pilot seat was a figure. It looked almost human, but different in ways that made John's skin tingle. The being had pale, iridescent skin that glowed faintly blue. Its features were delicate, with large almond-shaped eyes closed as if in sleep or unconsciousness. Blood, or something like blood, pooled beneath the figure. It was dark purple and thick. The being was hurt badly. John hesitated for only a moment. Hurt was hurt, human or not. His training kicked in. He carefully reached into the craft and checked for a pulse. The skin felt smooth and cool under his fingers. He found a pulse point on the neck. It was faint but steady, beating faster than a human heart would. "I'm going to help you," John said, not knowing if the being could hear or understand him. The being's eyes fluttered open briefly. They were deep violet with no pupils, just solid color that somehow still seemed to focus on him. A voice echoed. In John's mind, though the being's lips didn't move. "Help. Danger follows." John blinked in surprise, but didn't have time to question what had happened. The being was losing too much blood. He carefully lifted the alien from the craft. It was lighter than he expected, maybe 80 pounds despite being nearly as tall. As him, the alien appeared female, with long silvery hair and delicate features. As John carried her back to his cabin, he noticed small scales along her neck and arms that caught the light of his flashlight. Strange markings that looked like tattoos or natural patterns swirled across her skin. Inside his cabin, John laid her on his bed. His medical kit sat ready on the bedside table. 5 years away from the battlefield hadn't dulled his instincts. He cut away the strange fabric of her clothing around her wounds. A deep gash ran along her side, and her left arm was bent at an unnatural angle. John cleaned the purple blood away with water. The wound looked infected with small black specks that moved slightly, some kind of parasite or poison. He remembered his commander's words from years ago. When you don't know what you're dealing with, start with what you do know. He cleaned the wound with antiseptic, removed the strange black specks with tweezers, and closed the gash with medical adhesive. Strips. Then he carefully set the broken arm and created a splint from materials in his medical kit. The alien's breathing became steadier. John placed a cool cloth on her forehead and covered her with a blanket. Then he sat in the chair beside the bed and waited. Hours passed. The storm outside grew quieter. Just as dawn broke, The alien opened her eyes again. This time they stayed open, focusing on John double quotes or ... The voice in his mind was clearer now. "You're safe," John said aloud. "Your ship crashed in the forest. I brought you to my home to treat your wounds." The alien tried to sit up, but winced in pain. "Don't move," John said. "You have a deep cut on your side, and your arm is broken. You ... helped me. Why?" The voice in his mind sounded surprised. "I'm a medic. Helping the wounded is what I do," John replied simply. "I am Lyra of the Zithrai," the voice said in his mind. "Those who hunt me will come. You are in danger by helping me." "Who's hunting?" "You?" John asked. Images flashed in John's mind. Creatures with gray skin and red eyes. Ships like the one that crashed, but larger and marked with jagged symbols. "The Vrek. They seek to prevent the alliance my father wishes to build." "Your father?" More images came to John's mind. A tall being like Lyra, but with broader shoulders and a crown of what looked like living crystal on his head. Around him stood others in what seemed like a grand hall. "King Zorax of the Zithrai Confederation," Lyra's voice explained in his mind. "I was on a diplomatic mission when they attacked my ship." John tried to process this information. Aliens were real. He had an alien princess in his bed, and hostile aliens might be coming to find her. "Well," John said with a calmness that surprised even him, "first things first. Let's get you healed up. Then we can worry about the bad guys." Lyra's face formed what might have been a smile. "You are strange for a human. Most would fear me. I've seen enough in war to know that what something looks like doesn't tell you much about what it is," John replied. "It's actions that matter, and right now you need help." John checked her wound again. The purple blood had stopped flowing, and the edges of the cut were already showing signs of healing faster than any human wound would. "Your biology is different from ours," John observed. "You heal quickly." "Yes, but the Vrek used poison on their weapons." "It slows healing and causes pain." John nodded. "That explains the black specks. I removed them, but I should clean the wound again to be sure they're all gone." As John worked, he felt Lyra watching him intently. "You have skilled hands," her voice said in his mind. "You have healed many." "Too many," John said quietly. "I was a combat medic. Saw too many young men and women torn apart by war." "Is that why you live alone in these mountains?" John paused. "Yes, needed peace, needed quiet." "I am sorry to bring danger to your door," Lyra said. "Don't worry about it," John replied with a small smile. It was getting too quiet anyway. Outside, the sun rose over the mountains. Birds began to sing in the trees. For now, there was peace. But somewhere up in the sky, hunters were searching. And John Miller, the lonely medic, had just become part of something much bigger than himself. 3 days passed as John cared for Lyra. Her healing amazed him. Wounds that would take weeks to heal in humans were already closing. The broken arm was mending faster than John thought possible. Still, the poison from the weapons slowed her. Recovery. John brought her soup and water. "You need to eat to keep up your strength," he said. Lyra looked at the soup with curiosity. "Our foods are different," her voice said in his mind. "But I can adapt to yours." She took small sips from the spoon John offered. After eating, her color improved, the faint blue glow of her skin brightening. "Thank you, John Miller," she said. "Your kindness will not be forgotten by the Zithrai." John smiled, just doing what anyone would do. "No," Lyra's voice was firm in his mind. "Many would fear the different, turn away, or worse, call others to capture or harm me." John couldn't argue with that. If he had called the authorities, Lyra would likely be in a government lab by now. That night, as John slept in his chair beside the bed, a loud noise woke him. It sounded like helicopter rotors, but much louder and with a strange pulsing rhythm. Lyra sat up, her eyes wide. "They are here," she said, her mental voice tinged with fear. "The wreck?" John asked, reaching for the old rifle he kept above the fireplace. "No, my people. The HFY Royal Guard." John went to the window and pulled back the curtain. What he saw made his jaw drop. The night sky was filled with lights. Not stars, but ships. One massive ship hovered directly above his cabin, larger than an aircraft carrier. Smaller craft surrounded it. "That's a big search party," John said, his voice dry. "My father does not do things in small ways," Lyra replied, a hint of amusement in her mental voice. Bright lights suddenly surrounded the cabin. John heard cars and trucks pulling up outside, human vehicles. Through the window, he saw military Humvees and black SUVs. Men in uniforms and suits poured out, weapons drawn. "Stay here," John told Lyra. "Let me handle this." John opened his front door. Bright spotlights blinded him. Someone shouted through a megaphone, "John Miller. This is General Allen West of the United States Air Force. You are surrounded. We need you to come out with your hands up." John stepped onto his porch, hands raised. "I'm John Miller," he called out. "What's going on?" A tall man in an Air Force uniform approached, flanked by soldiers with raised weapons. "Mr. Miller, our satellites detected an unidentified craft crashing near your property 3 days ago. Now we have a massive alien ship in orbit directly above your cabin. Care to explain?" Before John could answer, the air in front of them shimmered. "General." West and his men stepped back, weapons raised. A column of blue light appeared, and within it, 3 figures materialized. The tallest figure stepped forward as the light faded. John knew immediately who it was from the images Lyra had shared. King Zorax of the HFY stood before them, nearly 7 feet tall with broad shoulders and the same iridescent skin as Lyra, though his glowed with a deeper blue. A crown of crystal formations grew directly from his head, catching the light from the military spotlights. His eyes were solid gold with no pupils. Beside him stood 2 HFY in what appeared to be armor, their hands resting on weapons at their sides. General West's men aimed their weapons at the newcomers. "I wouldn't do that," John warned. "Those are probably not the aliens you want to shoot at." King Zorax's voice boomed in all their minds at once. "I am Zorax, king of the HFY Confederation, ruler of 300 star systems. I have come for my daughter." General West looked stunned. "Your daughter?" "Princess Lyra," Zorax said. "She was on a diplomatic mission when she was attacked. Her ship crashed on your world." The king's golden eyes turned to John. You are the one who has been caring for her." It wasn't a question. John nodded. "Yes, she was hurt. I'm a medic." "Take me to her," Zorax commanded. General West stepped between them. "Now wait just a minute. This is Earth territory," and the king raised his hand. And General West found himself unable to speak, his mouth moving, but no sound coming out. "I mean no harm to your world," Zorax said to the others. "But I will see my daughter now." John led the king into his cabin, aware of the guards following close behind. When Zorax saw Lyra lying in the bed, his stern expression softened. "Father," Lyra's voice likely echoed in the king's mind as it did in John's. Zorax moved to her side and placed a hand on her forehead. The crystal crown on his head glowed brighter. "The Vrek poison lingers," he said aloud, his actual voice deep and melodic. "But you have been well cared for." He turned to John. "You treated her wounds with skill." "I did what I could," John said. "Her biology is different from ours, but wounds are wounds." Zorax studied John with those golden eyes. "You are a healer." Among your kind, I was a combat medic. I've treated a lot of injuries. Zorax reached out a hand toward John's face. May I? John hesitated, then nodded. The king's cool fingers touched his temple. Immediately, John felt a presence in his mind, much stronger than Lyra's. Images flashed before him, his time on the battlefield, the wounded soldiers he had saved, the ones he couldn't save, his decision to retreat to the mountains, and finally, finding Lyra and caring for her without hesitation. Zorax removed his hand. You have seen much suffering, he said. Yet you still chose to help a stranger not of your world. General West and several officers had followed them inside. The general could speak again and was on his radio, presumably reporting to his superiors. Your Highness, West said, addressing Zorax with cautious respect, we need to establish diplomatic channels. Your presence here has caused quite a stir. Yes, Zorax agreed. The time has come for formal contact between our peoples. But first, he turned back to John, you have earned the gratitude of the HFY royal house. Among our people, those who heal are held in the highest regard. Lyra sat up in the bed. Father, he saved my life. The Vrek would have found me if not for him. Zorax nodded. John Miller, you sheltered my daughter when she was vulnerable. You treated her wounds with care and respect. Such actions do not go unrewarded among the HFY. The king placed a hand on John's shoulder. I invite you to visit our homeworld as an honored guest of the royal family. General West coughed loudly. That's not possible. Mr. Miller is a civilian, and I accept, John said, surprising himself. Lyra's face broke into a smile. For the first time, John heard her actual voice, not just in his mind. It was musical and clear. You will not regret it, John Miller, she said. You will see wonders beyond your imagination. Outside, more military vehicles arrived. Inside the small cabin, two worlds met, and John Miller, the lonely medic from the mountains, stood at the center of it all. The next 2 days passed in a blur for John. Government officials questioned him for hours. Scientists asked him about Lyra's biology. Military officers wanted to know about HFY technology. Through it all, John answered as honestly as he could, though he knew little more than what he had seen with his own eyes. On the morning of his departure, John stood outside a military base, a small bag of personal items slung over his shoulder. Lyra waited beside him, now fully recovered and dressed in what she called casual royal attire, a flowing silver garment that seemed to move like liquid. Are you nervous? She asked, her actual voice now familiar to John. A bit, John admitted. I've never left Earth before, never thought I would. You will be the first human to travel beyond your solar system, Lyra said. But you will not be alone. I will be your guide. A group of officials approached, led by General West and a woman in a dark suit who had been introduced as the Secretary of State. Mr. Miller, the secretary said, you understand the responsibility you now bear. You will be representing humanity to an advanced alien civilization. John nodded. I understand. We would prefer to send a trained diplomat, the secretary continued. But King Zorax was quite insistent that the invitation was for you alone. I'll do my best, John said simply. General West handed John a small device. This is a specialized satellite phone. It might not work from another planet, but if it does, use it to report back. The air above them shimmered, and a beam of light appeared. A small craft descended from the massive ship still hovering in orbit. It was elegant and sleek, with no visible engines. It landed silently on the ground before them. Our transport, Lyra said. The craft's side opened without a sound. King Zorax stood inside, his crystal crown catching the morning sunlight. John Miller, his voice echoed in everyone's minds. It is time. John took a deep breath and turned to the officials. "Goodbye," he said. "And thank you for not locking me up as a crazy person when I told you about finding an alien princess in the woods." His secretary almost smiled. "Safe travels. Mr. Miller, we expect a full report upon your return." John followed Lyra into the craft. Inside, the walls glowed with soft light. There were no visible controls, yet the craft rose smoothly into the air as soon as they were seated. "The journey to our homeworld will take 4 of your Earth days," Zorax explained. "Our ship, the Celestial Crown, is the fastest in the Zithrai fleet, but the distance is vast." As they rose through the atmosphere, John looked out a viewing panel. Earth grew smaller beneath them, a blue and green jewel against the blackness of space. His heart raced at the sight. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Lyra said beside him. "Each world has its own beauty. You will see many on our journey." The small craft docked with the massive Zithrai ship. John followed Lyra and Zorax through corridors that seemed to be made of living crystal. Zithrai crew members stopped and bowed as they passed. Many stared at John with curious eyes of various colors: gold, violet, green, and blue. "They have never seen a human before," Lyra explained. "You are as strange to them as they are to you." Zorax led them to what he called the royal quarters. John was given a room larger than his entire cabin, with a bed that adjusted to his body and walls that could become transparent to show the stars outside. "Rest," Zorax told him. "Tomorrow, Lyra will show you our ship and explain our ways." After the king left, Lyra lingered at John's door. "You should know," she said, "that among our people, healers are considered sacred. By saving my life, you performed one of our most honored acts." "I just did what was right," John said. "And that," Lyra replied with a smile, "is why you will fit in well among the Zithrai." The next morning, Lyra took John on a tour of the ship. They walked through gardens where strange plants grew, visited engineering sections where Zithrai technicians worked with energy fields instead of tools, and passed through a medical center that made Earth's best hospitals look primitive. "Our people value healing above all other skills," Lyra explained as they watched Zithrai doctors treating crew members. "War is sometimes necessary, but saving lives is always honored." "That's not so different from what I believe," John said. Later, they entered a large chamber where Zithrai of different colors and sizes gathered. Some had scales that covered more of their bodies. Others had fin-like structures on their arms or backs. The Zithrai Confederation includes many related species. Lyra explained, "We have evolved on different worlds, but share common ancestors." A tall Zithrai with green skin approached them. Unlike the others, his eyes were narrow and his expression cold. "So this is the human who saved the princes," he said, his mental voice sharp in John's mind. "Such a primitive species." "Ambassador." "Krell," Lyra said, her voice cool. "John Miller is a guest of the royal family." "Of course," the ambassador said with a slight bow. No offense intended. As he walked away, Lyra frowned. Ambassador Krell represents a faction that opposes alliance with new species. They believe the Confederation should remain pure. "Every society has those who fear change," John said. "You are wise for a species so young," Lyra replied. On the 3rd day of their journey, alarms blared throughout the ship. John was in his room when the walls flashed red. Lyra burst in, her face tense. "We are under attack," she said. "The Vrek have found us." The ship shuddered as something struck it. John followed Lyra to a command center where Zorax stood before a large display showing other ships firing on them. 3 Vrek battle cruisers, a Zithrai officer reported. "They came out of nowhere. They must have tracked us from Earth," Zorax said grimly. "Raise shields. Prepare defensive measures only." "Why not fire back?" John asked. We are a diplomatic vessel, Lyra explained. Our weapons are limited, and my father prefers peace when possible. Another blast rocked the ship. A panel exploded nearby, sending a Zithrai officer flying across the room. Without thinking, John rushed to the injured alien. Burns covered one side of the officer's face. "I need medical supplies," John called out. A Zithrai handed him what looked like a small crystal. John looked at it, confused. "Press it to the wound," Lyra instructed. John did as she said. The crystal melted into a gel that spread over the burns. The injured Zithrai's breathing steadied. "Your instincts are good," Zorax said, watching John work. "You reached for him while others focused on the attack." The ship rocked again. "Hull. Breach in Section 4? Someone called out. "They are boarding us," Zorax said. "The Vrek wish to capture, not destroy." Guards rushed from the command center. Zorax turned to John and Lyra. "Go to the safe room," he ordered. "Both of you." "Father," Lyra began. "Now, daughter," Zorax said firmly. "Take John with you." Lyra grabbed John's hand and pulled him through corridors filled with rushing crew members. They turned a corner and came face to face with three figures. That definitely weren't Zithrai. Gray skin, red eyes, and sharp teeth, the Vrek had found their way into the ship. The three Vrek soldiers raised their weapons, their red eyes fixed on Lyra. "The princess," one hissed in a rough voice. "Take her alive." John didn't think. He pushed Lyra behind him and faced the Vrek. His time as a combat medic had taught him to act fast in danger. "You'll have to go through me first," John said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The lead Vrek laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "A human? Step aside, primitive. This is not your fight." "It became my fight when you shot down her ship near my home," John replied. The Vrek aimed his weapon. Before he could fire, Lyra stepped beside John and raised her hand. A pulse of blue. Energy shot from her palm, hitting the lead Vrek in the chest. He stumbled backward. "Run!" Lyra shouted, grabbing John's arm. They sprinted down a side corridor as the other Vrek soldiers fired after them. Energy bolts hit the walls, leaving scorch marks on the crystal surface. "I didn't know you could do that," John said as they ran. "Royal. Family defensive training," Lyra explained between breaths. "But it drains my energy quickly." They turned a corner and found themselves facing a dead end. Lyra pressed her hand to the wall, and a hidden door slid open. They ducked inside just as the Vrek soldiers appeared in the corridor. The room was small, with glowing walls and a single bench. Lyra sealed the door behind them. "Safe room access point," she said. "We should be secure here." John's heart pounded. In his chest, "Will your father be okay?" "My father has survived 3 assassination attempts and 2 wars," Lyra said. "He can handle himself." The ship shuddered again. The lights flickered. "What do the Vrek want?" John asked. "Power," Lyra said simply. "The Zithrai Confederation spans hundreds of worlds. The Vrek Dominion wants to expand, but we stand in their way," she looked at John. "They also fear what they do not understand. Our willingness to ally with species like yours threatens them." A voice suddenly filled the room, King Zorax, speaking directly into their minds. "Lyra, John, the attack is worse than we thought. The Vrek have disabled our engines and are attempting to take control of the ship. I am initiating emergency protocols. Stay where you are." The mental connection cut off. Lyra's face paled. "Emergency protocols," she whispered. "Father will attempt to destroy the ship rather than let it fall into Vrek hands." "What?" John stared at her. "But that would kill everyone on board." "Essential crew have escape pods," Lyra explained, "and the royal family has a personal transport. But we cannot reach it from here." John stood up. "Then we need to find another way out." I didn't come all this way to die in space. Lyra smiled despite the situation. Your species has remarkable spirit. They felt the ship change direction. Through a small viewing panel, John saw stars blurring as the ship accelerated. What's happening? He asked. We're changing course, Lyra said, frowning. But where? The door to their safe room suddenly slid open. Ambassador Krell stood there, his green skin now mottled with gray patches. His eyes had changed from blue to red. Vrek spy, Lyra gasped. Krell's form seemed too. Shift, becoming more like the Vrek soldiers they had seen. Princess Lyra, he said, his mental voice harsh. And the human pet. How convenient to find you both together. He raised a weapon. John leaped forward, tackling Krell to the ground. The weapon fired, hitting the ceiling. John and Krell struggled, rolling into the corridor. John had combat training, but Krell was stronger. The disguised Vrek pinned John to the floor, his hands wrapping around John's throat. Your species is weak, Krell hissed out as John struggled to breathe. He saw Lyra picking up Krell's dropped weapon. She aimed at Krell's back and fired. Krell screamed and fell to the side. John gasped for air, his vision clearing. Lyra helped him. To his feet. Are you hurt? She asked, her eyes scanning him for injuries. I'll live, John said hoarsely. Nice shot. I aimed to stun, not kill, Lyra said. Even a Vrek deserves mercy. They tied up the unconscious Krell with strips torn from his own clothing. Then they made their way through the corridors, avoiding patrols of Vrek soldiers. We need to get to the command center, Lyra said. Find my father. They reached a section of the ship that was heavily damaged. Bodies of Zithrai crew members lay on the floor. John checked each one as they passed, but none had survived. I'm sorry, he said to Lyra. This is not the first time the Vrek have taken Zithrai lives, she replied, her voice hard. But it will be the last if my father has his way. They reached the command center to find chaos. Zorax stood at the center, surrounded by loyal guards fighting off Vrek soldiers. Energy weapons fired across the room. Father, Lyra called. Zorax turned at her voice. In that moment of distraction, a Vrek soldier aimed his weapon at the king's back. John saw it happening as if in slow motion. Look out! John shouted. Running forward, he pushed Zorax aside just as the weapon fired. Pain exploded in John's chest as the energy bolt hit him instead of the king. He fell to the floor, darkness creeping into the edges of his vision. Dimly, he heard Zorax roar with anger. The king raised his hands, and a wave of energy pulsed outward, throwing all the Vrek soldiers against the walls. John felt gentle hands turning him over. Lyra's face appeared above him, tears in her violet eyes. John, stay with us, she pleaded. Father, he saved you. Zorax knelt beside them, his golden eyes intense. The wound is severe. The Vrek weapons are designed to cause maximum damage. John tried to speak, but only a cough came out. He tasted blood. There is only one way to save him, Zorax said to Lyra. The royal bond. Lyra's eyes widened. But father, no outsider has ever. He has earned it, Zorax said firmly. Without him, you would be dead. Without him, I would be dead. The Zithrai royal line survives because of this human. John's vision was fading. He felt Zorax place one hand on his forehead and the other over his wound. John Niller of Earth. The king's voice echoed in his mind. I offer you the royal bond. A connection shared only by the Zithrai royal family. It will save your life and bind you to us forever. Do you accept? With his last conscious thought, John managed a weak nod. Zorax, and Lyra began to chant in a language John didn't understand. The king's crystal crown glowed brightly. John felt warmth spreading from Zorax's hands through his body, reaching his wound. The pain began to fade. Then a new sensation came, a connection opening in his mind, vast and powerful. He could feel Zorax's strength and wisdom, Lyra's compassion and courage. Their thoughts and memories became accessible to him, and his to them. As the royal bond formed, John Miller, the lonely medic from Earth, became something more than human, something connected to the stars themselves. John opened his eyes to find himself in the medical center of the Zithroy ship. His chest no longer hurt. He sat up slowly, feeling different in ways he couldn't explain. "Welcome back," Lyra said. She sat beside his bed, her violet eyes watching him closely. "How long was I out?" John asked. 3 Earth days, Lyra replied. "The royal bond took time to heal your body." John touched his chest where the weapon had hit him. A faint silver mark remained on his skin, shaped like a star. "I feel strange," he said. "Like I can feel things that aren't mine." Lyra nodded. "That is the bond. You now share a connection with me and my father. Our thoughts, our memories, even some of our abilities." John closed his eyes and felt the connection, a warm presence in his mind. He could sense Zorax somewhere on the ship. His thoughts focused on navigation. He could feel Lyra's concern for him, her relief that he was awake. "This is incredible," John whispered. "It is unprecedented," Lyra said. "No non-Zithrai has ever been given the royal bond." The council was upset. "I'm sorry if I caused trouble," John said. Lyra smiled. "Do not be sorry. You saved my life, then my father's. The bond was earned." She took his hand. "Besides, it has already proven useful. Your human perspective helped us understand the Vrek tactics." "What happened with the Vrek?" John asked. "Defeated," Lyra said with satisfaction. "While you were healing, your knowledge of Earth military strategies, combined with our technology, created a defense the Vrek did not expect. Father has taken prisoners back to the homeworld for trial." John swung his legs over the side of the bed. "The homeworld. Are we still going there?" "We arrive tomorrow," Lyra said. "And you will be presented to our people not as a guest, but as family." The next day, John stood beside Lyra at a viewing window as the ship approached the Zithrai homeworld. Unlike Earth's blue and green, this planet shimmered with purple oceans and silver continents. 3 moons orbited it, each a different color. "It's beautiful," John said. "Zithra," Lyra said proudly. "Heart of the Confederation." The ship descended through clouds that sparkled like diamonds. They landed in a vast city of crystal towers that reached toward the sky. Each building seemed to be alive, pulsing with soft light. King Zorax met them at the exit ramp. "John Miller," he said aloud. "How do you feel?" "Different," John admitted. "But good," Zorax nodded. "The bond has settled well in you. Already your mind adapts to our ways." As they walked through the city, Zithrai citizens stopped to stare at John. Some bowed their heads in respect when they noticed the silver mark on his chest, visible through his new Zithrai clothing. They recognized the mark of the royal bond. Lyra explained, "You are the first human they have seen, and you bear our highest honor." They entered a massive crystal dome filled with thousands of Zithrai. Zorax led John to a platform that rose above the crowd. Through the bond, John felt the king's pride mixed with nervousness. "People of Zithra," Zorax's voice boomed across the dome, both aloud and in all minds present. "I present to you John Miller of Earth. He saved the life of Princess Lyra. He saved my life at risk of his own. And now he bears the royal bond." Murmurs spread through the crowd. John felt their curiosity, their surprise, and some fear. For 10,000 years, the royal bond has passed only to those of Zithrai blood, Zorax continued. But today begins a new era. Earth will be offered membership in our confederation. John Miller will serve as ambassador between our worlds. John felt surprise through the bond. This was not something Zorax had shared with him or Lyra. The king looked at John. "If you accept," Zorax added. John stepped forward. Through the bond, he could sense what to say. "People of Zethra," he said, his voice carrying across the dome, "I am honored by your welcome. On Earth, I was just a healer who had seen too much pain. Here, I found a new purpose. I accept the role of ambassador, and I promise to build a bridge between our worlds that will stand for generations." The crowd erupted in a sound like wind through crystal, the Zethrai form of applause. 6 months later, John stood on the landing pad of the newly built Zethrai embassy on Earth. The crystal structure gleamed in the Washington, D.C. sunlight, drawing stares from passers-by. Lyra stood beside him, now the official Zethrai ambassador to Earth. Through the bond, John felt her excitement about being back on his world. "The medical technology exchange is going well," John said, looking at a report on a crystal tablet. "Earth doctors are already using Zethrai healing crystals in major hospitals. And our scientists are fascinated by your Earth medicines," Lyra replied. "Simple solutions we never considered." A human delegation approached, led by the Secretary of State. John smiled and stepped forward to make introductions. This was his life now, the bridge between two worlds. Later that evening, John and Lyra stood on the embassy roof, watching the sunset. The bond between them had grown stronger over the months, their connection deeper than friendship. "Sometimes I miss my quiet cabin in the mountains," John admitted. "We could visit," Lyra suggested. "The king has approved a short leave for both of us," John smiled. "I'd like that." Lyra's hand found his. Through the bond, John felt her emotions, care, respect, and something more, something growing between them that neither had put into words yet. "My father has a saying," Lyra said softly. "The stars guide our ships, but hearts guide our fate." "On Earth, we say everything happens for a reason," John replied. He looked up at the night sky, now knowing which distant star was Zither's sun. The bond hummed in his mind, connecting him to Lyra beside him and to King Zorax across the void. Of Space Dot when he had found a wounded alien in the woods, John could never have imagined where that moment would lead. From lonely medic to galactic ambassador. From solitary human to part of a royal alien family. "What are you thinking?" Lyra asked, sensing his reflection through the bond. John smiled. That helping someone in need is never a mistake, no matter who they are or where they come from. Lyra's eyes, violet in the fading light, met his. And sometimes such a simple act can change the course of worlds. As night fell over Earth, two figures from different planets stood side by side, their futures now intertwined. And somewhere, in the vast reaches of space, the Vrek Dominion had learned that humans, especially this one particular human, were not to be underestimated.